Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. You are about to join a frequency that will open your mind, expand your heart, and activate your spirit. Thank you for joining Kelly Meehan, Spirit Baby Medium and Master Energy Therapist. Kelly believes in the power of the Spirit Baby. She speaks with babies in spirit before life, in the womb, and after life. She supports, teaches, and guides others to tune into the intuitive and mystical parts of life for greater wisdom. Join her in meeting your soul baby and build your connection and relationship with deep love and trust. Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio with your host, Spirit Baby Medium, Kelly.
Welcome to episode 82, March 13th, 2020, The Science of Spirituality for Womb Health and Cellular Healing. How can you allow the healing vibration inward for whole health wellness? What kind of deeper energies does the womb want to tell you? How can you bring intuition into self-awareness from conception into parenthood? I have a very special guest today, and it's beautiful bio here. It's Allison. Hello, Allison.
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. So Allison Clark is a energy healer, medical intuitive, womb healer, spirit baby communicator, and science writer. For as long as she remembers, she's been sensitive to energy and is clairvoyant, intuitive, healer, empath, claircognizant, and a modern medicine woman. She has been developing her healing and intuitive senses for more than a decade and combines her unique abilities to perceive energy along with her scientific background. She has a master's in health and nutrition and has studied human physiology intensely and has published several peer-reviewed articles in reputable scientific journals. Her medical intuition is grounded in knowledge about the inner workings of the human body and help shed light on the energetic origins of disease. Allison considers her work an alchemy of healing modalities, tools, and knowledge that she has gained over many lifetimes to create a unique approach that allows her clients a safe space to heal themselves and access their own answers. In her free time, she loves to play with her 2-year-old daughter, cook, hike, and read. She currently lives outside of Barcelona and is serving clients worldwide. Yay! This is so fitting to have. I feel like we're the alchemy right now of this vibration.
Yes.
You know, me and Allison, we go way back now. No, but I don't know how
this
we.
This is from another mother, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know where we first started to connect at, but was through. I think you were looking into probably my I don't know, it was my podcast or my offerings or what it was. What was it, Allison?
Yeah, I think I found your podcast, and then
okay.
I think from there I had a medical intuitive session with you, and then a spirit baby communication session, and now I'm in your spirit baby communication mentorship.
Yeah, and so I knew we worked a few times together, but I wasn't the medical intuitive session. Yeah, my gosh, I hope I did good, like with all your expertise.
Stop. Yes, you did fine.
I know all that before. Now I'm like getting like, oh gosh, you know, it could be like intimidating. It's like, oh, because it's like the big deal here. You're very connected, but me and Allison were going back and forth on just so many amazing topics and so many gifts to kind of share with, I feel like, the world and so many different areas to talk about. But we were just talking about right now, of course, it's Friday the 13th, which isn't so, it sounds so like superstitious, and I know where I'm at, it's just raining and beautiful out, but we do know that global consciousness right now is under distress, global consciousness. So those that are feeling, you know, extremes of fear and non-extremes of fear, knowing where you are is where you're supposed to be. And I just had this conversation, and maybe Allison, you get this, and with a friend, and I said, you know, that because there's these extremes of fear and non-fear. And I don't feel like, yes, of course, there's extreme of fear, which can be very unhealthy, and it can break the body down, but there is some conscious wisdom, right, in that story. And there's also people, I don't think people are being, like, passive or they don't care. I do feel like not everybody's meant to hold the vibration of fear, negativity, and scarcity, right? This is the thing, right. You know, especially with many intuitives, that we have a different perception and perspective. It's like we see behind the scenes. And, you know, that could be misinterpreted or looked at as a certain way. And, you know, of course, you know, with the coronavirus, the pandemic, it's like, what is happening with consciousness and what are we needing to move, I feel like, in the stillness of where we are, like really going into the quiet space, connecting with others in community in a more private and even introverted way. I do feel like there's something to the rhythm, and and of course we have our governments and politics, which then pushes against us. But staying intuitive, and we'll talk more about that as that comes, because I do want to talk about, more about Allison's work. Share a little bit more about what you bring to people and what that looks like.
Yeah, so I offer various services, and I would say my strongest, I'm very sensitive to energy, as you had mentioned earlier, and I would say that the way I perceive energy primarily is through my clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, as well as my claircognizant, which is just knowing information and feeling very certain about certain information that I'll just receive. And it'll just come into my head, and I'll just sometimes just know. And so through that, I'm able to do clairvoyant readings for people, and I can read pretty much anything, whether it's relationships, past lives, or if somebody wants to look at sort of more energetic things like spiritual contracts and things like that. And I also, because I have a strong scientific background and understand the inner workings of the human body, and I've always been really interested in biology and the human body, I'm also able to see and understand the human body on a clairvoyant level. So I'll look at somebody, and oftentimes, and I realized I was sort of a medical intuitive a few years ago. I didn't even know that was a term until recently. And I would be doing a clairvoyant reading on somebody, and I would just, certain organs would pop out to me and would almost sort of speak to me and would want some sort of communication, and I would communicate something to somebody, and I said, hey, do you have this going on? Do you have allergies, or do you have digestive problems, or this or that? And they said, oh, yeah, how'd you know that? And then from there, I can just kind of read the energy. And through my certainty, I know that what I'm reading and what I see and perceive is correct. And that takes time, it's taken time to sort of trust my intuition and my various psychic skills. And I would say I specialize also working with women, particularly around the womb energy, and anything that has to do with hormones and the reproductive system. And so I think what I've learned over the years that if women can truly embrace their creativity, and through that and part of that is really embracing your menstrual cycle and understanding how that works, and understanding womb energy, whether you have a menstrual cycle or not, or even a physical uterus or not, it's still an energetic space for women, and it's a very important psychic center for women, and it's the center of creation for women. And if you can really honor that, then your life just flows a lot more, and you can be in more homeostasis and have more physical balance as well. Because I see a lot of women who are not honoring their creativity. They might be giving it away to other people, or they might be working from a very kind of masculine doing energy. That's when a lot of physical problems will arise, like PCOS or endometriosis, heavy periods or missing periods, PMS. So I've been seeing a lot of these patterns throughout my work. And so it's just something that I'm really passionate about, especially helping women in that area. So I can do medical intuitive reading, kind of more of an energy, clairvoyant reading to see what's going on, or women's energy healing as well, that specializes in kind of helping out that womb energy and that female creative energy flow better.
So I want to know a few things you said in there. It kind of struck my curiosity is, the womb wellness, the hormones, the creativity, but also I want to kind of define for people, I say in the title about cellular healing. What does that mean from your perspective, and like how what is that about? Like, to kind of define it, and let's go more into cellular healing.
Yeah, so if you want to get to a deep level, our cells hold memories and information. And this has been proven scientifically, whether you believe it or not, but there are scientific studies that do show that. And so our thoughts, everything is energy. First of all, let's just start from the basics. Everything is energy. That's kind of the basics of quantum physics, but also I think anybody who works with energy like we do understands that everything is energy. So our words have energy, our thoughts and emotions are energies, and that affects us on a physical level down to our cells. And so I see cellular healing is kind of reprogramming some of those energetic patterns. And a lot of that is our thoughts and our beliefs and our emotions. And I think when we can open up our awareness to those patterns and how they affect our health, then we can change our physiology on a cellular level and kind of recalibrate things and really operate on a physical and energetic space that's more in alignment with our truth as a spiritual being. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, because I feel like, I want to, define it for the audience, because I don't want to, sometimes I'm like, oh, I get cellular healing, because when I learned about energy healing, they taught us that, right? But then I'm thinking, well, maybe people are like, what is this cellular healing? It has to do with cells and healing, but maybe there's like, what is, no, that's beautifully expressed.
And another level of that too is a sort of a new area of science that's expanding is epigenetics, which is the science of genetic expression. And we now know that our genetics are not our destiny, and that through environment and lifestyle changes like diet, our exposure to toxins, the kind of water we drink, the exercise we do, the medicines that we take or supplements, and even the stress levels and thoughts and emotions can affect our stress levels. That all affects our genetic expression. And so cellular healing is also about our genetic expression too, if you really want to get really micro about it too. And that we have a lot more control over our health than I think we're meant to believe, because there's a lot of fear, and I feel like a lot of people are subconsciously programmed to believe that only doctors have our answers, or you have to have some sort of medical degree or a PhD to understand health, and you really don't. I do believe that it's very empowering to understand how your body works, but I don't think you need to have a super deep understanding of it. And I think that if you open up your intuition and use a little bit of common sense, I think even just that is very empowering.
I love that you said that, because it reminds me of, I started thinking about, there's two body workers I know that were never, quote unquote trained to do it in a certain way, but they been doing it for like 40 years. And they're amazing at it. And I feel like, and I'm always like, I like people, off the books, underground. I'm like, I don't care. It's like, because intuition, I really trust the interaction between people and what they offer, right? It's like, we meet people that maybe have 1,000 different degrees, but they're not intuitive and they just have nothing to offer. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Not to downplay trainings and degrees, but it's really that connection with people, that connection with healers, and even the cellular work, like this generational, I call it energetic, genetic stuff, this ancestral. Right. There's so much conversations about that now. And I know I'm going to do a podcast on that, because I'm curious, because I'm seeing these things. And at the same time, it feels like a lot of work. Like, oh my God,
it is. I mean, it does take work, but I think any good healer or practitioner is able, if you're sensitive to energy, and I think you're able to say hello to that person, who they are as a being, look beyond whatever energetic or physical stuff that they're handling, and be able to say hello to that person without any judgment. And I think if you can do that, that is a huge healing. You open up a really safe space for that person to be who they are, to feel grounded, to feel accepted and not judged, and to be able to heal in the way that they need to heal. And that comes from that person. I say that I'm a healer, but really I just create a safe space for that person to heal. I can never, quote unquote, fix or heal anybody. It has to come from that person. And I think part of that first step in creating a safe space for healing is to be able to just say hello to that person, and not say hello to their disease or whatever kind of energetic crap that they're dealing with, because we all are dealing with energetic crap. We all have bad days, and we're all handling different stuff. We all get judged for that, whether it's self-judgment or from other people. But I think as healers, if you can just say, hey, I see you as a beautiful being that you are, and you're okay, you're whole, and you're exactly where you need to be. And we all, I believe that we have illnesses and there are teachers.
Yeah. I want to hear more about, we talk about womb wellness. I feel like, I know I'm going through my own, pelvic floor stuff all the time with the darn sacral energy.
Right.
I'm like, I literally felt like I was just born into I always joke and say my firstborn broke my second chakra. Probably in a good way, but in a way where it literally is like unleashed like so much deep stuff. And then the healing piece is like, that's the piece that has to be addressed, and the love. But it's interesting how the fear is so enchanting, right? In the womb space. And, I know you work with women with fertility and even birth loss. It's, what is a good womb wellness? Maybe you have something like an energetic, physiological, what would you say for that? How to keep that energy in a balanced place?
Yeah, I would say first step is just say hello to your womb. I think so many of us ignore it. I think we're taught in this modern day that our menstrual cycle, first of all, when you first get your menstrual cycle, oh my God, it's so embarrassing. It's the end of the world. This is the worst. Your mom might throw a box of, pads or tampons and say, well, honey, you're a woman now. Good luck. Have some fun. Hopefully it's not too painful for you, and that's kind of not much else, and they hope that you learn enough in sex ed and call it a day. There's no real ritual around having your first menstrual cycle, and we're not taught that really our menstrual cycles are really magical source of female power and creativity. I mean, without our menstrual cycles, we wouldn't even be here. First of all, let's just say that. And second of all, we have the power as women to create life from scratch. Men can't do that. Third of all, our menstrual cycles show how cyclical we are and what creative beings we are. So that's the first thing. I think it's just kind of honoring that part of us and saying hello to our wombs and understanding that our body's never working against us. It's always trying to work for us. And so any kind of symptoms that we have, or you're just feeling off, that's your body trying to communicate to you. So if you're having period problems, I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but if you're having period problems, that's your body's way of saying, hey, something's out of balance. And a lot of times with women, that's because we're not honoring our creativity and that womb energy. So how do you say, what is womb wellness and how do you achieve that? I think the first thing is just saying hello to the fact that you have a womb, whether you have a physical womb or not. We all have an energetic womb space, and that's kind of our center of creativity. And just knowing that by our very nature of being women and having a female body, we're very creative beings. And that if you don't honor that creative part of you, your womb gets mad. She's going to get mad, and she's going to let you know that next period or, whatever kind of emotional imbalances might occur. And so I think it's also giving yourself the permission to create a space for you to be creative, even if that's just creating for the sake of creating, whether that's cooking, whether that's singing, even if you can't carry a tune, or playing an instrument, painting, even if it's doing a paint by number, adult coloring book, whatever it is, but just honoring that creative part of you. And it goes beyond baby making. And that's one thing. And I think being able to give ourselves the permission to pamper ourselves. So I have very strong communication with my womb. She's very opinionated. She's very self-aware. She lets me know what's what. Don't cross her. But I honor that. I say, whoa, I need to slow down. What does my body need right now? What does my womb need? Oof. My womb needs to take a hike in the woods for an hour and just totally disconnect. Or my womb needs to watch some trash TV and disconnect that way. My womb needs to cook this dessert or bake with my daughter, or I need alone time. I need to meditate. I need to get in touch with that wild feminine part of me. So there's many different ways, and there is no one singular definition for womb wellness. I think it's honoring that wild feminine part of us and that creativity that we have within each of us, and not giving it away, not feeling that we have to create something and give it away necessarily. And there's many forms of creativity. You can be creative with just your own expressive way of being, of dressing, of speaking, how you talk. there's a lot of different ways. But I think that's the first step, of just saying hello to that womb energy, and kind of fake it till you make it, until it starts to make sense, right? I think a lot of times it's kind of like, what is this? What is this energy? What is talking to my womb? That sounds really weird. But I think if you open yourself up to it and you kind of clear out some of that resistance and you have some sort of amusement with it, yeah, it is going to be a little bit weird at first. But I think we all have listened to our womb at one point or another. Whether it's when you go to the doctor and they tell you that you want to, they recommend some treatment, you know it's not right, or whether it's you shouldn't be with a certain partner because it just doesn't feel right, it's invalidating to you for whatever reason, or you feel burnt out and you need to take a rest. I think we've all listened to our womb in some way or another at some point. And it's just remembering how to do that again.
I love how, it made me think of like Christine Northrup. She talks about the heart and the high heart and the low heart, and the low heart is the womb. And I use that from time to time in meditations. I'm like, now drop into your lower heart of the uterus of the womb.
Right.
And I really appreciate like even the psychicness you talked about of the womb. And I've seen this with some women that have very porous psychic wombs. Not a lot of women are like that, and I'm sure they can access it. But there is a lot of mystery around the womb. And there's this one woman who even writes a book called Womb Wisdom, which is like a famous book, but it's a very deep book. I feel like it's you're not reading, and you would get this. I don't know if other people understand this, but you're reading energy, and it's like a portal to another kind of consciousness. And so I don't recommend the book to everybody, because if some people may not even be attracted to the book, because you have to be willing to go through other dimensions really to receive the way that this is being expressed. And of course, I do feel like everything always comes back to energy. And I love how you talk about the creativity. You actually inspired me right now to go, I'm going to get, not that I wasn't listening, but I was like, I want to make a uterus and put a picture and put like flowers around it. Like I should do that. I'm like, oh wait. And I was like, I feel like I'm tapping into what you were talking about right before. And then you talked about the creativity. And I love that. And I know, a lot of women with infertility or have issues, and they're like, well, I'm creative, but I like how you bring in all these other forms. That creativity is not like, okay, just go draw a picture, but it's like through movement, through singing, through expression. And then I'm laughing because I had this thought. I was like, do I share this? Maybe I'll share this now. I had this time where I sent everybody out of the house, like all the boys. I say I have two sons and a husband, so I call them the boys. And I'm like, just go, like, leave. I need to create feminine. And I just was naked with a drum. And I'm like, okay, I was like, what am I doing? I'm just going to like play this drum naked. Like I could do that. There's nobody that's going to grope me or like, Mommy, I need you, or look at your body. And then my husband, give me the googly eyes. And then I'm just like, I could just walk around. And I was like really in, I guess I can look at that as a very creative energy, right? It's just, it's being in the sound of the drum, and just, I think I was more in awe looking around going, it's so quiet in the house right now. I could do whatever I want.
Right. And like, just being, and feeling your body and just enjoying the sensations and the physical sensations of your body and your body as a woman. Because our experience is very different than that of men. And we're very in touch with nature. And I think, women are very intuitive and very sensitive to energy. Not to say men aren't. I think we're physiologically more wired to be sensitive to energy. But I think if you look at it from a very survival, evolutionary standpoint, it's because we're the ones taking care of the young, of the little babies. We had to be more perceptive and aware of
so it's like it takes us back. Back to ancient times.
And I think if, for the listeners out there who are like, whoa, like womb energy and like thinking about being creative sounds too much, I think another way on a more physical level of being able to honor your womb is just understanding how your menstrual cycle works, or just basic hormones. That in and of itself is such a healing for your womb, and is just so empowering and validating for you and your body to understand how it works and understand the cyclical nature, and be able to sort of start to decipher some of the symptoms that you might receive throughout your cycle, or understand, oh, wow, okay, right now I'm in my, post-ovulatory, I'm in my luteal phase. That's why I'm a little bit more tired and why I'm craving chocolate and potato chips. And you know what? I'm not going to judge myself for it. I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? And so at a very physiological sense, you can just honor your womb in that way. And I know so many women who have no idea how their cycle works, and they've been on the birth control pill or some sort of hormonal birth control for so long that suppresses ovulation that they've lost touch with that part of them. And I'm not trying to judge anybody who's on birth control for whatever reason. I'm just saying it's just a pattern that I've noticed among women. And I was on the birth control for several years, and for me, it just didn't work. My womb told me no more. I tried the copper, then I went to the copper IUD, and she gave me the middle finger. I was like, Allison, get it out. No way. And so I really had to understand how my cycle worked to know when my fertile phase was. And for me, that was very empowering. And it was a great way to honor my womb.
Yeah, even you mentioned that the copper. I noticed the copper is a very psychic mineral too, and you insert it into the body, into this space. And I hear that a lot with highly intuitive, connected women. It's like, nope, it goes in and like, nope, that's not working. But I do feel like copper. Like if you Google copper and look at the more spiritual kind of value of it, it's quite fascinating, and it's interesting that that's in the body. And I feel like, of course you're not judging birth control, but birth control is synthetic. We're not hiding behind that.
Right.
And so it is a push and force to alter the cycle. And I love how you talk about, coming back to the cycle, like knowing the rhythm, even, being able to look at your body in a certain way, being able to know what's going on inside, not just being scared of even, physically, like looking with a mirror, like, where's my vulva? Where's my cervix? Like, what does this all look like? And then tuning in to even, what the cycle is. It's like, oh, this is this time. And I know for me, right before the moon time, I'm like, my immune system is very suppressed. And I know this. And so it's when I've tracked it over like a 20-year period. When I get sick, it's always right before that. And there's a science behind that. I heard that when your body, like, it actually drops its immunity and estrogen heightens because it thinks that I'm going to get pregnant at some point. So it's like, it's very protective. Right. But what it does is with someone who has immune problems, it's not good, because then I get like, I get sick all the time, not lately, but it's like that was the rhythm. And I was like, what is this? And it was, and now I feel like it's interesting. I'm sure a lot of women feel like I felt so out of sorts, like, because we're not taught, like you said, we're really not taught about our moon, our first bleed, and like what that means. And, I feel like nowadays a lot of young girls are getting that, and it's so amazing. It's so powerful to see that that's being, offered in the community to then, I just wonder how these young girls will grow into their possible conception or pregnancy and what their connection is to their cycle.
Right, and I think learning, once you know how your cycle works and you don't have that fear of like, I could get pregnant at any moment. Okay, and it's like, really, you can only get pregnant about 5 days maximum, maybe 6 out of your cycle. If you are even ovulating every cycle. And so that in and of itself is very empowering once you figure that out. It's like, oh, wow, so I'm not fertile, the hormone. They don't have to like fear that I'm going to get pregnant or, whatever.
Have you ever, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no,
yeah.
That was just it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just thinking, have you ever come across any women, and I've seen this before, and I'm curious to see your take on this, is that they're having infertility issues, and it's going maybe year after year. Maybe they dabbled with intervention, or they didn't work for them. They ran away from it. It's just like, it's not good for me. And then I find them to be highly, like, fertile, and their body wants pregnancy. And then I'm like, gosh, I even say, like, you're not going to like what I'm going to say right now. And it doesn't happen for everybody. But I find that quite fascinating. Have you ever, like, tuned into that for people? Like, wow, their body's really speaking and saying that they're open to that.
Yeah, and I find, though, that a lot of times a lot of women they're just not aware that they don't have that, so I see a lot of times what happens is they're not aware of that innate creativity, or they're not honoring their creativity and that kind of womb communication. And so it might be all fine and dandy, and then their womb finally gets pissed off and like, hey, you're not creating. I have all this like kind of built up potential energy, creative energy stored in this womb vessel, and it needs to go somewhere. And so oftentimes what happens is they'll end up getting excess estrogen, which is called like estrogen dominance, and some people call it that. So you might have heavy periods, acne, a lot of bloating before your period, and heavy cramps or fibroids, or they might get PCOS, because what I see with PCOS is that there's all this, every time I see ovulation, I see it as almost like a firework, like a burst of energy that's going out into the universe. And so if you're not creating and putting that creative energy out into the universe, there's nowhere to go. So what happens is these cysts form on the ovaries. And so I'll see that a lot of times. If women go for long periods of time of not honoring kind of that creative, fertile part of themselves.
So I know everybody's unique, but what would a woman do if she's having PCOS? Did I say that right?
Yeah, the polycystic ovarian.
Yeah. So, because I've seen women that have had that, but also feel extremely discouraged. What? And of course, I know these little ripples of, this energy that's behind it, I'm sure is more individual, but there's also a rounder, like, oh, where's the creative, or what have you seen with that? Like, what would you, I know it's hard to say there's a general remedy, but there kind of sometimes is a little bit. Like, you talk about creativity, so if someone's having ovarian issues with cysts, like, what would be a nice way to like kind of begin to release that energy? How about that?
Yeah, I think just especially with PCOS, a lot of times androgens like testosterone tend to be higher. So it's a very kind of male energy. It's like when you compare it to estrogen and progesterone. And so a lot of times with PCOS, not only are they forming these cysts, but they tend to have high testosterone and insulin. And so I just see a lot of them working from a third chakra kind of space, of like the solar plexus of doing, go get them, very driven, and maybe even to the point of burnout, but very much running a lot of from a place of male energy rather than from that female receptive kind of non-effort and creative part of themselves. So to kind of help balance that, I would say focus more on who you're being than what you're doing. It's kind of shifting more into that yin, feminine quality, and just try to work on creating in a really fun way. So that might be, like I said earlier, maybe getting a hobby, maybe cooking more at home, maybe starting a blog or writing in a journal. I mean, there's a lot of different ways of being creative, but being creative in a place in a way that feels authentic and fun. For that woman, where it doesn't feel like a chore, like they have to do something creative just because, just because their psychic healer told them to, but because it feels good on an energetic and body level. So that would be, I would say, the first thing. And then try to be unapologetically as feminine as you can, whatever that means for you.
I like that.
I think we're seeing a rise in sort of this divine feminine consciousness and energy, and I think there's a lot of support on this planet for that.
It also makes me, something else you talked about, and I'm still like, and with my medical intuitive ways, I'm always like expanding and trying to understand more and really listen so I could be of service in that way. And I know with endometriosis, this is a big one, right? I mean, I feel like women have either like a lower level of it or a higher level, and some don't even know it, is what I'm hearing, or there's speculation.
They're not diagnosed for years.
Yeah, but I feel like when there's speculation, I always tell them, well, you can't really like guess that, so you unless you're getting like an internal, which they do, or like a or what do you call it, an external like look through like some type of what is it, sonogram? I forgot what to call it. But just, otherwise to take a guess, like, oh, your period's this or that, it's a little off. But I'm noticing in my work is that endometriosis is a very challenging one. And, you know, I tell people there's an origin, there's a root underneath it. So even though it's coming, you know, at certain times of their life, and some people it starts right at puberty, and sometimes it just comes in the middle of life. But I always feel like there's an origin, and I always find that it's actually connected to a person in their life, whether it's lover, mother, father, you know, like there's some energy, some past energy I find is the connection. And I always find, like, not to give them even a harder lesson to learn, but I'm like, it's kind of be a little bit of a work to kind of uproot old energy. It's like, you know, planting the seeds of something so long ago that's been comfortable. And now it's like, oh, but now it's got to change. Now it's got to, you know, do you find that a lot of women are having endometriosis, like, or maybe the doctors are wrong too. I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting what's coming out. A lot of studies are coming out too about endometriosis, that it could possibly have autoimmune disease components to it. So, you know, the immune system is attacking itself. And it could also be possible infection in the uterus, so sort of the vaginal microbiome imbalances. And I also see too, especially with endometriosis, it just seems like the womb is just very angry. You know, it's just very angry, kind of inflammatory, kind of bleeding energy. And it has to be that extreme so that the woman pays attention to it and what the womb is trying to convey. And I see it's very hard for the womb to ground with endometriosis. And if you think about the disease itself, it's like, so you have uterine tissue that's migrating out of the uterus to other parts of the body, like the colon or the intestines, the bladder. And it can be extremely painful. So think about it, like the uterus has to migrate outside of that sacral space because it doesn't feel safe and it's angry. It's trying to move out that energy, and it can't quite ground it out. And it could very well be, like you said, from a past relationship or some sort of energetic contract or pattern, relationship pattern that's going on with somebody for sure. And that space is just not honored.
Yeah, I love all these tips that you give about creativity. Like, I'm vibing with it. I'm like feeling it, like yeah, doing this and this. It just feels like the most loving thing to do, especially if you're on this journey. A lot of women that tune in, they do struggle with infertility, or they struggle with birth loss, or they have multiple birth loss, and they're like, where is my baby? Like, where's this connection with my body? And I know there's so many different, you know, ways to that journey, right? As we talk about, and, you know, bringing in a little bit of science, bringing in a little bit of this. But is there any other, I'm just curious, any other womb stuff that you've seen with people that, like, maybe you're like, oh, this client had this, and then the way they healed it, it was just interesting or phenomenal, or any, I don't know, I didn't prepare you for this, so I don't know if anything comes to mind, like, oh, this is a neat thing to share, or
I would just say the work that I do with women, I mean, I'm not talking necessarily those looking to conceive or dealing with pregnancy or birth loss, but what I've seen is just me saying, recognizing and acknowledging the energy that they're handling, or whatever I intuitively will pick up if they're handling. I noticed that somebody the other day gave her a reading, and I noticed that she had PCOS, and I also was noticing that she had irregular cycles and all that. And she's like, oh, yes, thank you for validating that. You know, my doctor's not listening to me, and he thinks that everything's fine, or that I should just go on birth control pill, and I don't want to. And I think just having somebody say hello to what they're going through and not be negated or not immediately offered a pill or a prescription is very healing for a lot of women, and just acknowledging what they're going through. Because I think a lot of times women are often, and studies have shown this, that we're often denied, our stories are often denied when we tell it to doctors. And studies have also shown, which are really cool, that the womb, they showed a study in rats. It's a little sidetrack, but it all makes sense in what we're talking about. They performed hysterectomies on these rats, and they found that that the rats, basically the long story short, that the rats held on to these memories that were in the womb. So basically that this study showed that the womb holds on to certain memories and can affect our brains. And so I think that's just a really powerful thing to remember, is that the womb never forgets. Like I said, it's a very powerful energetic center. So if you don't acknowledge past trauma, the womb's not going to forget that. And the womb's going to hold on to that, because look at the very shape of the womb. It's like a triangle. It's like a vessel. It holds energetically. The ovaries in the womb hold on to like magnets. They hold on to a lot of that, because we're very good at holding on to a lot of people's other energies and traumas, and our own. And so if you don't find a modality to ground and release some of that trauma, and whatever kind of modality works for you, there's lots. It could be talk therapy. It could be energy work. It could be acupuncture, yoga, art therapy, whatever it is, or even just connecting with some really close friends, or having a creative hobby as an energetic outlet. If you don't acknowledge that trauma, you're not going to heal, or it's going to be very hard to heal. And so part of that is just acknowledging, that relationship I had 10 years ago was really abusive. My relationship with my mom still isn't 100%. Let's just acknowledge that, and that it's not my fault. I don't have to carry that burden, or that I'm still not 100%, recovered from that miscarriage I suffered 10 years ago or whatever. Or my womb is still pissed off for the copper IUD I had for so many years that ended up doing damage. There's so many different things, or that horrible boss I had, it could be so many different things, but just know that we're receptive, sensitive beings, and that the womb holds on to a lot of those energies. And so you have to find a way to release that trauma and those negative energies, or those heavier, denser energies that no longer serve you. I'm sure they served you at one point. And I do believe that we all go through certain experiences we choose a lot of these experiences as a being to learn and grow, but at some point you have to let that go to be able to grow and heal. So it's really easy to be unconscious and ignore a lot of that trauma. Nobody wants to open all that closet with all the skeletons in it, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to if you really want to grow and move forward. And so sometimes it's really helpful to deal with somebody who works with energy like we do, or a therapist who can help you say hello and acknowledge and make peace with some of those uncomfortable energies and experiences and memories and traumas. And make you feel safe. I love
that, yeah.
And not make you feel like you're wrong for whatever you experience or are still experiencing. That whatever your experience is exactly what you need to experience, but that you don't have to hold on to that if you don't want to, that you can move on from that.
And I know that in I don't know what the recent stats are, but maybe you do, is that cervical cancer was very high for women. I'm like, well, this is a whole other conversation. It's like, what is it with that pelvic floor, that bowl? It does take in so much, and we do forget about the energetic. I love the saying hello to the womb. Like, where is my womb space? And it is very it's not something we talk about. It's not something people get nervous or scared. And I know when I'm taking some women into their womb space, which is most every woman I see, we go into the womb and the sacral energy. And I feel like that's how I got pregnant the second time so quickly. And so it just showed, I felt like I'm hanging out in people's wombs all day. So I'm doing unconscious micro healings of my own stuff, And I found that some women, that's just start by saying that simple invitation of hello, and then begin to build that embodiment and communication with the body. And it's like another entity. It's another soul force of energy. I love that's what I feel like when you talk about it.
It is.
I almost feel like Allison, where's her classes? Is she teaching this? Because this is so fascinating, and it feels good. It feels good to connect with that. This is my space. Where is my womb? And I'm seeing it pop up here and there more, but I want to see it a lot.
Me too. And I feel like that, like I said, the first step is just acknowledging that we all have, we're almost all of us, unless you had some sort of genetic defect, we're born with a womb. if you're a woman.
Yeah.
And say hello to that, and you can say hello to that energy, and that it's almost like a psychic antenna. I see it's just one of our psychic spidey senses that we have as women. And you can say hello to that, and you can say, hey, Willem, how you doing today? What do you need? How can I support you? And if you work with your womb and you honor that, she's going to be your best friend. She's got your back no matter what. And she will guide you. She will say, nope, don't take that job. Nope, don't do that. You better do this. And you will trust her, and she will not steer you wrong. She never does. Trust me. She doesn't want to get you, she doesn't want to get you in trouble. She has your best interests at heart, but she wants to be heard. She really wants to be heard. And so I think also too, for this next generation of women, I would love to start with this womb awareness, just talking about the menstrual cycle too, and how do you honor the different energetic cycles that we have through our menstruation each month. You know, we're different, we change. Whereas men, they're very linear. And I think, it's so boring. I feel so bad for them. It's so much more fun and interesting to be a woman because, you know, you never know what you're going to get. We're always different. And it's fun because you could be like, okay, wow, it's just like, great, menstruation. You know, I'm having my period. This is a great time for me to slow down and take care of myself, give myself that permission. And then afterwards, it's like, boom, let's get ready to have new projects and build up a lot of that creative energy and let it go. And then after your ovulation, it's like, all right, let's get into that really intuitive, introspective space, and kind of like wise woman and slow down a little bit. And it starts all over again. And it's fun. You can have a lot of fun with it. I think we're all taught that like it's horrible. What do you call it? That it's, you know, we're all damned by having a womb, you know, and it's not the case at all. It's really a blessing if you just know how to work with the energy and just respect it and say hello to it. And
be sexual and sensual with it.
Yes. And I was just going to say, and part of that is also listening to your body and being in your body. So when you do have those uncomfortable sensations, listen to it. Don't ignore it. Don't run for the hills and pop pills as your first mode of action. But rather sink into your body and listen, because your body's always working for you. Your body wants you to be healthy and happy. And so when those symptoms arise, it's telling you something. So one period, the great thing about having a menstrual cycle is it's like your monthly report card. If you did not take care of yourself, your womb is going to let you know. Allison, you were stressed and you were eating like crap. And let me tell you, or, you know, you weren't slowing down enough. Or Allison, good on you. You get a gold star because this week you did wonderfully. You have very few cramps, moderate to light bleeding. You're good to go. And so it's listening to that. And I love it. So I love my monthly report card because it's like, how did I do this week? This month, how did I do?
Love that, the way you shared that. So we're just coming up here to the end, but I want to make sure that those that are interested, if you have any upcoming events, workshops, or any projects, and just, you know, or even private sessions, what your website is, ways people can contact you, and anything else you'd like to share, just final.
You can they can reach me at my website, which is AllisonClarkIntuitive.com, and Allison is spelled ALLISON, and Clark CLARK. So AllisonClarkIntuitive.com, and you'll find all my contact information and the services that I'm offering right now, my private sessions, my energy healings, and my readings and my medical intuitive readings, as well as all on my website. I'm going to be doing a free webinar next Tuesday for this wonderful startup company here in Barcelona, all about hormones and your diet and nutrition. And it's this wonderful startup company called Aura Box, where they make personalized care packages for your period. And then in May, I think I'm going to be offering another workshop about, depending on how the coronavirus is, it might be a webinar, but it's supposed to be an in-person workshop all about reclaiming your female creative power by honoring your menstrual cycle and the different energies and archetypes that we embody throughout our menstrual cycle. So stay tuned for that. That'll be happening around May of 2020.
And then people can join you, like if they go to your website, they could sign up to stay connected, right?
Right. You can follow me also on Instagram, Allison Clark.
Oh yeah. What's your? Sorry. What was the name? At
Allison Clark Intuitive.
Okay. Perfect.
And you can find that too on my website. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Allison, for being here.
Thank you. I had so much fun. It was an honor to be part of this podcast.
I feel like we can probably talk for hours about so many amazing topics together, or alchemy, weaving it together.
Right.
Well, thank you for joining episode 82, The Science of Spirituality for Womb Health and Cellular Healing. If you like my podcast, please subscribe and leave reviews. Thank you again for joining. Please check out my book, It's a Journal, Sacred Communication, a Spirit Baby Journal, and you get more information in just a moment.
This is Spirit Baby Radio. Thank you for joining Kelly in the energy of awareness, love, healing, and soul communication. Please join the next episode at www.soulbabycommunication.com.